Hey everybody, good to see you all back again. It's time for me to get this clothesline out of the way. I've hit my head on these a few times, and then we need to get some stuff off of the bench too. Lots of hardware has been prepped and ready. As you can see, we've done some seat work and we've done some steering rod work over there. We'll get into that a little bit later, but first, let's just pick a piece and start assembling. This bracket is what holds the ignition switch, on-off switch, as well as the control rod. Get that there lined up on the far side. The control rod for the belt pulley drive. And remember, we've left this tree loose at the base because we are going to need to tip it back when we start lining the steering shaft in. So if it wobbles around a little bit, that's why. The arm bracket for the hydraulic control rod is next. We've got a double install next. The electrical box on the right side of the tree. If I can get the bolt the line in. There we are. And on the other side, the push button starter switch housing. Just have to hold it all together and not drop anything until we get it all started. Perfect. And we finally reached the top of the tree, throttle lever. Let's start fitting the drawbar brackets next. These are some more pieces that you don't want to fully tighten in until everything else has been started, because you may have to move everything around, reposition a little bit when you go to bolt the rest of the drawbar brackets and bracing up. Next up is what the parts manual calls the drawbar angle. I guess that's a good enough name as any for it. And we're doing correct hardware. It specifies just this single flat washer beneath each nut. And we are going with the oversized 3/4 coarse thread nuts for this. They are also correct to spec. Should hold itself in position. Yep, as soon as this upper one draws up. Can't fall off now. Now it's time for the drawbar swing frame, and these special large square head bolts go in from the back side like that. One for both sides. We'll finish it off. Lock washer with the large 3/4 coarse thread nut, just like with the drawbar angles. Now we can pivot the braces down. I had those anchored up at the tops already just to make things easier. It's pretty tight quarters back here, so I'm trying to figure out how to hold that up. There we are, with my leg. Get two hands free. Pretty tight quarters back here working around this overhead door. And well, because of the heat, humidity outside, and of course we still have some of that initial spring hatching of mosquitoes about, it's just better if I leave everything closed up as much as possible. Drawbar now. This thing fought a lot less before everything had paint on it. Bare metal and slick. It just slid right in and right out again. There we go. We're all lined in. So this is not a factory drawbar pin. It's one that's got a shouldered stepped head on it that someone made for this, and it's actually a very nice pin. So I kept it. So the factory pin does not have this head that bottoms out right there. It's just a straight pin. So the keeper for it would just be, that's about to roll on the floor, would just be a flat piece of metal. I made this one custom, and it's got just a step in it so that it will still be flat down to the pull point right there, but then that stepped head of that pen could go into that relief that I cut in there. So let's see if we can manage this just with one hand. Tell you what, I'll hold the camera and so there we are. See if we can't start it all in. Boy, somebody really wants to get a hold of me. They always seem to know when I'm underneath a machine or greasy up to my elbows. Start, bolt, start. There we go. I think we got it started. Yep, all right. Emergency's off now. Yeah, so it fits, it steps just right over the head of that pin. I know, I'm under the tractor, I'm coming. Wow. I need to find some friends that have a lot more patience. And now we can do the fancy drawbar roller. That's right, I popped for one of these, and here's the rearmost bracket. I need to get that put in place first. Learned that lesson the hard way on the Super M, because once I stack everything in on top, we won't be able to start that bolt down through. This will be a lot better than just that flat piece of metal strap that I had made to go over the top. But this also is going to look a little bit funny, the gap that's right here, because, well, none of this horseshoe plate, swing frame, that's what I'm trying to say, stuff is tight. And also somebody, I'm not going to say who, but the guy that's in charge of paint prep ended up 4 3/4 lock washers short for all of, get you off the cameraman pole, for off of these brace bolts. All right, so all of this is going to remain loose, and you know, a lot of up and down float and everything, so not a huge deal. We'll just do the best we can to get all this stuff loosely assembled. This can go together tight. But yeah, having a roller, yeah, we're doing that right. Having a roller on here is going to be a lot nicer for everything, a lot less wear on top of the swing frame. And with all the bolts tight, yeah, that gap that's right there, like I said, when I finish up with the hardware for the swing plate, tighten it up, that will raise, close that gap, and we'll have a nice roller in place. And we also cleared the clothesline. That means I can walk around again without hitting my head on things. Let's move on. All right, so some work that's been done off camera on top of the jack stands here. Upper and lower steering shafts. We'll begin with the what I call the lower shaft, or the worm shaft. This is the one that goes into the top of the bolster. And the one out of the H was pretty badly worn back here where that, that bearing guide block goes, in that area right there. And these H shafts are so easy to find, it doesn't even really pay to try and rehab that one, like build it up, turn it back down. And in fact, I already had this other H shaft on hand that's it's virtually like brand new, no wear back there. For the guide block, I did throw a fresh ball bearing on the front of it just to further tighten things up. These are a very common Timken like 205 series ball bearing, easily found just about anywhere. So that gets us fixed up right there. So then the upper shaft that goes up to the steering wheel, which is on that end, put a new U-joint in it just to make sure that it was, you know, good for another go around down here. Takes a little bit more play out of the system still. So with a unworn worm shaft, new bearing, new U-joint in the upper shaft, and we have a rebushed front bolster, I'm thinking we're gonna have all of that old front wheel shimmy taken right out of the mix. Now we move on to the seat, and this is the swap meet find seat that I picked up at the Le Sueur, Minnesota meet this last April, because up to this point I had had the rear shock mount type seat on the H, and that's not the correct level of seat design for this serial number. This one is with the mid-mount shock that goes beneath the top beam and the base. So everything's been disassembled, and well, we'll start with the shock. So the old one was pretty well shot, rod was bent, and the bushings were all out of it, but they do sell new replacements. For some reason they come like in candy apple red, which is going to have to be addressed, but we've got the new shock for it. And everything with the pivot bolt and rubber bushings for the front was pretty much completely shot. That goes through right there and through the center of the tube on the front of that pipe. And as you can see, we were wearing all the way down into the threads, and everything was just in overall bad condition. But fortunately, they sell new kits to replace all of that. That's what we have right here. Included is the new center shaft with the double threaded ends, and then we have this flat washer and a cone shaped bushing, tapered rubber bushing for each end. And what would happen is it all gets assembled into the front of the seat frame like so, and then that goes into the base mount. And then we have these fine thread 1/2-inch bolts with lock washers that would go through, one on each side, hold it all together. But I wasn't completely satisfied with the setup, because all of your load is being taken solely just by these rubber bushings on each end. And I don't like how loose that center shaft is inside of that tube, that pipe segment, all right? And you should all know by now that when the old eyelid starts twitching, we need to make a plan. So to give this center shaft more support than just throw it on the floor. Always a good plan. All right, take two. So to give this center shaft more support than just what these two rubber bushings can provide, well, I had this bar of UHMV plastic, very good stuff. I was able to turn this sleeve out of that, and this is just going to be a light slip fit inside of the pipe section on the front of that seat support, and we're a rather loose fit onto the center shaft, but that's all right because I did not want to completely turn this sleeve into a bearing. It's just there for some backup support. So then you would assemble everything onto each end as normal, all right, and clicks a little bit. We gave it plenty of float. So the rubber bushings are still working as intended. They are going to be taking the bulk of the load. We're just going to have to start over here pretty soon. But as soon as they deflect or compress a little bit, this UHMB sleeve is going to be right there to help to give it some support. And I think that's going to make these rubber bushings last a lot longer. So I'm quite happy with the setup as I have it now. So that's what we're going to use. But we aren't finished with the mods yet. Oh no, there's more. I've placed the pivot shaft and bushings just loosely into the seat base support to show the next issue that I am afraid we're going to have. So the kit comes with these 2 1/2-inch fine thread bolts and a lock washer to just tighten against these ears on each side. And we installed a similar new bushing kit onto the seat of the Super M. It was a different design than this, but the principle was the same. And one issue we've had with that ever since is as the seat bounces and flexes on the spring, on the suspension spring, it will gradually work these bolts loose because you've got all that twisting going on between the center shaft and the bushings. And we've tried different style lock washers, we've tried Loctites, and nothing has worked. So I'm going to abandon the lock washers from the kit immediately. And can you guess what I made that can secure a bolt in a very dependable manner? That's right, fold over locks. It's just been too long. I had to scratch that itch. So the few fold over locks that IH uses are always a bit rounded on the corners. They're never square like the Cat ones. So I just put slight rounded corners on all of these, and they will go under the head of each bolt. And depending on direction of rotation, one side will be folded on the front end and then up the back side of the bolt, and then the other side will have it folded on the back side of the ear and up the front side of the bolt, depending on where it needs to be. And while I was at it, I also measured out and made a couple of fold overs for the Super M seat. They're a little bit larger than this because it's a different style seat, but that should kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So that was the final mod that I wanted to do to the seat frame design. And we all love fold over locks, right? So it should work. So we've been through all aspects of the seat frame and the pivot. We have not yet talked about the seat pan, and this is the one that's been on the H the whole time I've had it, and it's not a correct IH seat pan. I honestly think this one came off of a Minneapolis Moline originally, but I decided let's just do it upright. I popped for a new Repro fully upholstered, padded and vinyl covered, right, correct, and proper IH seat pan for the project. And I don't know yet how I feel about all of the white fabric or the white covering being up at the top, because I get on and off these tractors quite a lot, especially like when I'm pulling the tumblebug scraper. I've always got dirty hands, and I like to grab onto the back of the seat as I'm climbing up the drawbar. I think that's going to get dirty pretty fast. Another thing to look at too, we're all creatures of habit. We have our routines, and it's no coincidence that the paint is basically hand polished right off and it's shiny metal right there, because when I'm sitting in the seat pulling something behind, that's where my hand is all the time. It's grabbed onto just that edge of the seat pan, and I don't know. But see, that's why we form such illogical emotional attachments to these machines. We leave our mark on them just as much as they leave our mark on us. And when you make friends with something, it doesn't matter what color it is. It could be red, it could be green, it could be Persian orange, it could be prairie gold, it could be Ford blue. I get it, you know. It's just one of those things. That's why we do the things we do and go to the lengths that we go to. So that is going to look nice on the tractor. So we've got a decent start on the next paint batch pile right there. There are a few other things I can get into, air cleaner refab, and I believe I am going to get into the belly pump reseal job next. I'm going to wrap this episode right here. I think we're at a good jumping off point. So look forward to new gaskets, new seals, and a disassemble, clean, and reassemble on the belly pump next time. and maybe a few other things. Thank you for watching, everybody. Hope to see y'all back again. I know I'm going to get that dirty.